Alright, what's up y'all, it's Lake2 here, as you can about today's video, here to show you all of the biggest threats into a Paris Trap team and how to deal with them. So, essentially, what I'm going to be assuming all of you guys have that are clicking on this video, or if you happen to be at least clicking on the video and run a Paris Trap team yourself, you run Mega Gengar, and then something like Incineroar is probably on the squad as well, something to troll, like a Sabelye for instance, and then I really do recommend something like Kommo-o as well to be able to counter into a lot of these weaknesses we'll talk about in today's video. Primarina or Blastoise for the sake of hitting either Fake Out Flip Turn from Blastoise or Perish Song Flip Turn from Primarina. We've showcased things like Altaria, for instance, as well, Morpeko, Heliolisk into the opposing rain teams that we'll struggle with also. So we're here to just account for all the weaknesses and teach you guys how to deal with them, or what you might want to even consider leading against a lot of them. I'm not going to give the leads for every single use case of Pokemon because there are so many interchanging pieces and stuff like that, but wanted to at least share the team with you guys, show you what we're working with right here, and then also just pull up this screenshot. We'll go ahead and pull this up over here. I have a list that we have also a key on. Now, if you want to see this as well, I have one without the key, and you can screenshot this if you'd like to just see my notes, simply put, if you're not with all that colorful stuff. But I do have this maybe a little bit easier to sort out with this color-coded one right here of just which of my Pokemon that I run on my team can counter into these Pokemon easily. So Pokemon on the left, color correlated with them on the right. So Primarina equals blue, Kommo-o equals orange, Sabelye equals purple, Gengar equals white, Incineroar equals red, and Heliolisk equals yellow. Don't mind too much about Heliolisk just because he's here very specifically to counter into the rain teams like the Pelipper, Archaludon, and Basculegion. He absolutely dog walks Basculegion, it's insane. And then I might show something like a Gengar for a counter into some things. I want y'all to really keep in mind though that I'm not going to be counting Gengar as a counter into many people because putting his life on the line is not exactly how you want to go about the Paris Trap consistently, but sometimes you do just have to do it. So we'll get a little bit more detailed with this stuff as we go. But essentially what I'm going to explain here in today's vid is that this is more so how you deal with them offensively, like who is going to shut them down and like really you click moves and it will deal with them. If we don't have a way to do so, Paris Trapping might be the only really, viable way to get the job done. Now, off rip, let's go over some of the people that I don't have notes on because they're the most like hard counter there is. So things like Mega Hawlucha. It's not so much Hawlucha as the problem, and I feel like Prim could actually get like decent damage into him. It's just we've shown a video of him running his no guard ability and then using his move entrainment to move his no guard over to a different Pokemon, because that's so constantly seen in many different use cases, whether it's like, Vanillux with the ice type sheer cold, Crocodile with the no guard fissure, we have Horndrill, stuff like that from normal types, etc, etc. It's just there's so many different Pokemon that can use this type of move and this type of ability with the no guard one hit KO moves. So Mega Hawlucha is just an absolute menace to society with this Paris Trap style, because Paris Trap wants to be more slow paced and like you're very bulky invested into your mons. Barely any of them are going to invest into offensive stats, let alone like speed even sometimes. So a lot of it is just HP defense. So it's very hard to delete Pokemon in one turn while running a style like this. Meanwhile, your other opponent is able to hit things like no guard fissure and boom, instantly just take out a KO. So first off, let's just start with this because this is going to be the easiest one to kind of talk about setting up into. Either running Taunt on something like a Sabelye could be a really decent counter into this, or if you play it slow and hit something like Disable into, let's say, the Fissure move or the Sheer Cold move that you're expecting to come out, the no guard will hurt a whole lot less for them having it. So something like Sabelye is absolutely your way to deal with Hawlucha, the best that we at least have on this team. Now, I'm gonna go back to the top and go from top to bottom just to kind of talk about stuff like that. Mega Golurk is a menace to society with this team. However, I will mention Gengar does very good damage into him and Golurk is extremely slow. So as long as you pair the leads, like let's say something like Incineroar, Dark type move, plus Gengar Shadow Ball. If Golurk doesn't hit something like Protect first turn, you're chilling. However, most people are probably going to do something like that. So it's a little bit of a hard read and something where you could really get punished if you don't do it. And then also if you couldn't deal with him, then that means you're kind of just out of luck, because then the Trick Room might be set up by the ally at that point, and as Golurk protected and you doubled into him, you're in really bad shape. So thankfully, we don't see this very often because Golurk with Unseen Fist and Headlong Rush is an absolute problem for our Gengar. Like essentially, Unseen Fist is going to let you hit through Protect and do 25% of the damage that you normally would do, which, you know, is still barely any damage in the grand scheme of things. However, with a Mega Golurk with like 150 base attack and Headlong Rush, a 120 power ground move going into our Gengar that can't even protect itself, that's a problem. That is definitely a problem. And we don't really have the means of dealing with him great unless it's just put Gengar's life on the line and just fire in damage with the Shadow Ball. So, yeah, Trick Room with him is very, very threatening, and I don't know that we really have a great answer. Now, people that I have formulated answers for, let's talk about Kommo-o, for instance, with his orange, like, logo right here. Let's zoom in on some of these, as you're going to see. So, with the Kommo-o key, we have King Gambit, Garchomp, Incineroar, Tyranitar, opposing Kommo-os, and Mega Lopunny. Now, Mega Lopunny is very threatening as well with its Scrappy ability. It's going to be able to hit into opposing Ghost types, and what makes that even tougher too is that its normal and fighting moves can hit. So basically something like Sabelye is super affected by Lopunny's fighting moves, and then, you know, Gengar is free for the taking as well with like normal type moves, even if it's something basic too. So and because Lopunny is normal type, that also means that we can't hit them with Gengar either. So yeah, very threatening Mega Lopunny is. However, Kommo-o can deal with that pretty solid, all things considered, with its insane defensive bulk. Our Kommo-o, as you probably saw by the team intro, has 194 defense because we've gone defense up nature and full investment into it, and we use that as an offensive stat as well with the body press. So naturally, because we have so much defensive bulk on him, what it allows him to deal with is an opposing Garchomp. We run the Habanberry on him too, so that he's able to take something like a Dragon Claw from Garchomp, and that means that I'll pull it up real quick just so you guys can kind of get some reference for this. With the way that we have Kommo-o trained with 12 investment into a special attack with a 132, for any Garchomp that hasn't invested into his HP or special defense, and most of them are full into the speed and attack, that means this Draco Meteor is 100% guaranteed to KO. We have it calced to that point where that's the exact matchup, and then considering the Habanberry is on him, it lets him deal with opposing dragon types really, really well, because obviously dragon being super effective into dragon, if you match up with another dragon but you have a Habanberry and they don't, typically you're gonna win. This could go for Hydreigon, it could go for, you know, like Dragonite. The list goes on and on. Dragonite's a little bit tougher of a use case because you're not gonna be able to one-shot him if he has multi-scale. You might have to chip him with like a fake out or something first, to be fair. But either way, point is, that is the type of stuff we have Kommo-o being trained for. So King Gambit, physical attacker, 4x super affected by fighting moves. Incineroar, physical attacker, he uses Intimidate to cut you down, and also Parting Shot to get out, but Kommo-o is soundproof, so Parting Shot doesn't work on him. The Intimidate doesn't matter because we're hitting with Body Press and Draco, so like we're not even using our physical attack stat anyway. And then opposing Kommo-os actually as well, they run a set, like the mainstream way to run Kommo-o is to run Clangorous Soul, which is going to boost all your stats by +1, but it costs you 33% of your own health, and then to run Clinging Scales, a spread move dragon type that's going to do 110 power. However, Clinging Scales is also a sound-based move, so when you're using that into an opposing soundproof Pokemon, it doesn't work. So essentially, our Kommo-o wins 1v1s against opposing Kommo-os because Draco Meteor can hit their Kommo-o, but Clanging Scales can't hit ours. Essentially, that's the way this is going to go. You can still hit the body presses and stuff like that into him as well. It's not a hard counter, but it is easily the thing that we would deal with the best on the team. I would probably suggest to run something like Prim in the other slot while trying to deal with this. I should have absolutely put Primarina in here, by the way, because Primarina, any fairy type, is going to destroy Kommo-o. So yeah, keep that in mind. My bad. I should have added her to the list on the Kommo-o slot. But for T-Tar, once again, 4x super affected by fighting, and that's just 100%. Even Mega Tyranitar gets one shot by Kommo-o with full defense and the body press, so that's free. Again, King Gambit, and the reason a lot of these guys are on the list is because they give Gengar problems. Incineroar, big problem into Gengar. King Gambit, big problem into Gengar. Likewise with Garchomp with the ground moves. Kommo-o, once again, like, you know, just to be immune to the Paris Trap and soundproof and stuff like that. Lopunny, again, just able to hit through his ghost type, and he can't hit Lopunny. It's just a really tough matchup, to all things considered. So Kommo-o sees the absolute most use cases where he is very good as an offensive player into the opposing team's threat into Gengar. That's why you're going to see so much orange lit up on this list. It's just simply put, he's the really good counter into a lot of stuff because fighting types will cover for our dark type weakness, and then also his dragon type happens to line up with Garchomp, who, granted, Garchomp is hitting super effective earthquakes and stomping tantrums into Gengar, but it's more the fact that Garchomp is a dragon type, and that's why Kommo-o is able to deal with him so easily, is because he can actually get him off the field in one turn. So anyway, Garchomp Primarina can also deal with pretty good with the Moonblast as well. Basculegion, we have Gengar kind of being checked to deal with this Basculegion. If you guys haven't been familiar with the channel, basically the only way that Basculegion outspeeds Gengar is if he is Choice Scarf with a Jolly Nature, and he's all 32 investments of his potential stat points into his speed. Otherwise, Gengar is a pretty good counter into Basculegion. It's just very tough to rely on that as your like win condition. You know what I mean? You're going to lose some games purely just off the fact that you got outsped by Basculegion, and with Last Respects doing crazy damage into everybody on the team, Gengar is the first to fall to that more than anybody on the squad, because it can be pretty problematic. Now, because Basculegion is such a menace and he's just by far one of the best Pokemon in the game, Heliolisk absolutely walls the heck out of him. If you didn't see the video from yesterday, essentially his Dry Skin ability is going to make him immune to water moves. If anything, he actually gets healed 25% for every water move that hits into him. And then also, he's a normal type. So he's normal electric, which electric means you can do super effective stab damage into the rain teams like Pelipper and, you know, Basculegion, etc., etc. Normal type makes you immune to the ghost, and then his Dry Skin makes him immune to the water. So basically, Heliolisk is the 100%. It's like he was made in a lab to counter Basculegion. It's just insane. So if you ever need something to check this Mon because he's giving you absolute problems, Heliolisk is 100% the guy. And he also still deals with the Rain Trio really well. Like he'll one-shot Pelipper, he'll one-shot Basculegion, he'll be able to hit his Eerie Impulse move, which is going to drop the special attack by 2 stages, and he's going to be faster than every Archaludon as well. So you have the ability to drop Archaludon, Dragonite, you know, their special attack by 2 stages before they can even get an attack off. So really good at shutting those guys down. Moving along, Farigiraf, really big problem. Like, his Armor Tail makes it so that Fake Out doesn't work, which, you know, eliminates your Incineroar value. But, ironically, Incineroar is actually pretty decent into this with, let's say, I was running 2 different ideas, right? So, currently, we have Throat Chop, which actually stops Farigiraf from using Hyper Voice, which then makes it so it can only use Psychic moves. Now, where this is tough is, let's pull up the team again real quick. Where this is tough is that, as you can see, we don't really have a lot else on the team that wants to be on the field with Farigiraf. So, another way that I kind of want to introduce to you guys with, and like, I'm calling this the training wheels situation right now, because where I feel uncomfortable running this is into just every team in general. However, Gengar can really wall things at, like, you know, pretty well if you run this move specifically. So we have Substitute, but if you instead ran Reflect type, this is essentially going to copy the type of whatever target you choose. So with Farigiraf, normally it's a problem because Psychic type moves are going to be super effective into you as Gengar. However, if let's say it's, you know, you could Reflect type into the opposing Farigiraf, now you become a Psychic normal, and the Psychic moves are going to be doing, you know, resisted damage into you. It's going to be pretty weak, all things considered. Or if there's a Kingambit on the field, or your own Incineroar, you could copy Incineroar and become a Dark Fire type and make it so not only does the Psychic type not even hit you, but it's immune, you know? Or if Kingambit's on the field, you could copy Kingambit so that Kingambit can't hit you super effectively at all. If anything, he's hitting you for Dark type moves, which is resisted, Steel type moves, which is resisted, and then Farigiraf hitting you with a Normal type move, resisted, and Psychic type move, immune. So, where I was talking to you guys about this whole concept of, you know, only one person in the world being able to counter into Farigiraf, aka Incineroar, the thing is, debatably, if you ran Reflect type, Gengar can kind of fill a lot of these voids right here. Like, imagine, you know, Incin, super effective into Gengar, but if you copy his own type, he can't hit you with his fire moves, he can't hit you with his dark moves for anything other than resisted damage. Kingambit, once again, the same thing. Farigiraf, pretty much the same thing. It's not always the use case, because things like Garchomp would super effective you still with, you know, like dragon moves, or be able to hit you neutral damage with the earthquakes, which, you know, all things considered can still be helpful, but not as useful. No need to really copy Sneasler, but the list goes on and on, right? T-Tar, dark moves would be resisted again. You're not going to be faster than Mega Delphox, and that's why this is going to be such a threat. We'll talk about it in a second. But yeah, just keep that in mind with the Reflect type. It can be very interesting for being able to chameleon a little bit harder, where Substitute is the safe play, but I'm calling it the training wheels because, like, truth be told, I can see the vision for why Reflect type would be better, all things considered. It's just that I don't feel comfortable with it is all yet, and I think it just takes a lot of practice and, like, knowing what type of teams you can really plan to use that into. And it's not so much the whole using Reflect type, it's just the fact that you don't have Substitute. is what hurts. So anyway, moving along here, let's see. So we already were talking about Kingambit and Incineroar. This is pretty simple. Prim can also really shut down Incineroar if you wanted something on the field next to it with Kommo-o. If you really had to delete Incineroar, it's pretty simple, all things considered. But Sabelye is absolutely not the answer into dark types. So Kingambit, Farigiraf, because of Armor Tail, you can't use your priority moves. Just keep this in mind. Farigiraf, Kingambit, Incineroar, T-Tar, these are people that Sabelye can't really do anything into, truth be told. Greninja still also like it's a weird use case with Greninja because I was actually able to use his protein ability against him because he was trying to use Flip Turn. I double protected, waited to see what move he did after he went Mega and turned into whatever he was going to do off his protein ability, which makes him a mono type of whatever move he clicked, right? So then he went for Flip Turn to try and leave the Paris Trap, but then I hit Disable into the Greninja because he's now a pure water type rather than a dark type. So that's where this is a weird use case, and he's very, very hard to counter for that matter too. Let me tell you something, because he's much faster than Gengar, also is a dark type, so he threatens that type of move into him, and he has Flip Turn, and he has U-Turn, all types of stuff. He's able to get out of the Paris Trap, he's able to just do crazy damage into you, and we don't have anything in the team that could deal with him really easily. Kommo-o is the ideal counterplay, but then if he's carrying Ice Beam or something like that, he's hitting stab super effective Ice Beam from a Mega Greninja into your not very, bulky, specialty defensive Kommo-o. So not exactly easy for us to deal with by any means. But anyway, coming back up to the top, let's talk about Sneasler and why Sabelye is the hard counter into Sneasler. So essentially, let's say you wanted to lead something like Gengar or Heliolisk or Gengar Incineroar, and now instead you see they lead a Sneasler, and Sneasler is going to be pretty threatening into either of those two leads. Incineroar or Heliolisk, it's just not what you're trying to see. Maybe even Primarina if you decided to lead them, and now a Dire Claw is being threatened into you pretty hard. Sabelye is going to resist the Dire Claw. It's not exactly what you want to switch him into because just all things considered, you don't really want to end up getting chances of status hitting into you, so baiting things out like a close combat would be a little bit better. But anyway, the point is, the use case of Sabelye into a Sneasler is if Sneasler does hit Fake Out or close combat into either of these guys and you led Gengar next to it, essentially, with Gengar having the Shadow Tag on the field and then Sabelye switching into that Fake Out or close combat, you could Encore Sneasler, and now he is stuck hitting a normal or a fighting type move into two ghost types, and he can't switch out either because he's being, Shadow Tagged. So essentially that is how we shut down one of the most annoying mons in the game, and how also you can punish him for hitting things like Fake Out and close combat into your squad, because Lord knows these dudes want to hit close combat. They have this white herb, item that it's like they're just begging to use it because then it's going to unburden and make them double the speed. So even against opposing Tailwinds or something like that, they're faster than every Pokemon. So essentially, stay on the lookout for stuff like that because you can troll Sneasler really hard with Sabelye. Other than that, though, there's not a whole lot on the squad that actually deals with Sneasler that well. Gengar shuts him down pretty decent, all things considered. So if you ever had to fire off like 2 Shadow Balls into Sneasler, you can snag KOs on him pretty easy as long as whatever's on the field with him isn't very threatening into Gengar. And then, paired with Sabelye, it'd be a walk in the park. I mean, you shut him down and then Sabelye and Gengar start working on the other guy on the other slot. Just KO him. It's easy, for sure. Anyway, with T-Tar, debatably Incineroar can somewhat help, but he is super affected by, obviously, like Rock Slide and stuff like that. But to be able to get Intimidates into Tyranitar is pretty helpful, as well as Fake Out pressure can be pretty decent as well. For the record, for those who don't know, Sabelye, yes, the Prankster moves don't work into Dark types, but that does not apply to Fake Out. So if you ever wanted him to Fake Out something like Incineroar or a Tyranitar or something like that, or Kingambit, you still can. It's just that things like Disable and Encore don't work into Dark types. So anyway, what that doesn't work though is Farigiraf. Farigiraf will shut down all priority moves, so Fake Out from Incineroar, Fake Out from Sabelye won't work into Farigiraf. I know it's very complex for those who are new to the game. I'm here to give you guys the key though, for sure. So anyway, Mega Delphox. What an absolute menace to Gengar. It is faster than Gengar and easily one-shots it with things like Psychic and Psyshock. So that's where Sabelye comes in really helpful because it's threatening into Kommo-o as well. Incineroar I probably should have put on the list right here for dealing with Mega Delphox because defensively it can wall it really well, and then to be able to hit like Throat Chop into it and stuff like that is pretty decent. I've been playing around with Incineroar Snarl, thinking about it a little bit just to drop special attack of a lot of the people that he deals with, for that matter too, if you start like kind of doing the math on it of who you end up actually trying to fight with Incineroar, a lot of them are special attackers. So anyway, which is unfortunate, right? Because Intimidate is kind of his use case, but a lot of the typing on the chart and stuff like that, it ends up being like psychic types who happen to have some form of other coverage on their moveset, and in this case, it's Delphox, right? So essentially, yeah, if you had Snarl, you'd be shutting this Delphox's special attack down while already just walling it defensively, where it can't hit like, you know, psychic moves or fire moves into you very well. So anyway, Mega Delphox, like I said though, Incineroar can deal with it, but Sabelye's best use case is once again to disable it on the same turn that you want to do a move with Gengar. So if it used Psychic the prior turn, we're going to have to assume that it isn't carrying 2 Psychic moves, or that it's just going to click it and assume that that's the best damage, so they want to go for it again. But that's where Double Protect is very valuable on Gengar Sabelye, because then you can just see what move they want to click, and then you're like, oh, okay, say Delphox wants, you know, Psyshock into Gengar. It's like, okay, we're just going to ready damage into Delphox. We can still do super effective damage with Gengar into Delphox, and debatably try and get one-hit KOs into that as well. It's just that Delphox is faster. So what we can do is we can hit Disable into Delphox, stop it from using the move that it just used as it's trying to ready it again, and then if they were readying that move, it's going to fail, and then even if you don't get the KO with Gengar, you could encore it into having to do the same move. So there's a lot of ways to shut it down, and that's why Sabelye is a major key into these big threats into Gengar, like for instance Garchomp or Delphox or Sneasler. Sneasler's not a big threat into Gengar, but into the back of the squad 100%. So yeah, Sabelye is the what's the word here? Engineer, if you will. He just patches things up really, really well, and like can make it so you win a fight that you never really should have won if you didn't have him on the team. So anyway, moving along to the next one. We have Rotom, specifically Wash, in my opinion. Now, the reason I don't like Rotom as far as the matchups, he's a really bulky mon, and it'd be a lot easier to just Perish Trap him. But then, oh, it's just so cringe how people run him. So they pair him next to a ground type nearly every single time, right? Because here's where the synergy happens. Rotom has Levitate, ground type moves don't hit him, aka you could just spam a Garchomp Earthquake next to a Rotom Discharge. Boom, now you're getting 30% chances of para, you know, into both slots, while also getting hit by earthquakes as well. So it's spread move damage spam, right? It's just the most, debatably, I would say the most brain dead playstyle, except for with Sneasler. Sneasler is literally brain dead. You just hit Dire Claw into things and hope that it sleeps or hope that it paras and just start trolling the game, you know? It's so annoying. But anyway, yeah, Rotom is just a pretty like turn your brain off Pokemon, all things considered, but where it also has some complexity aspect to it that is very frustrating into these Perish Trap teams is the fact that it has Volt Switch. So consistently seen on them too. Like any form of Rotom probably has Volt Switch, and it makes it really, really hard to Perish Trap them while already being a bulky mon too. So the only way to really delete Rotom is to be getting Shadow Balls with Gengar off, and I just find that to be pretty tough. Depending on the Rotom form, debatably Kommo-o can deal with it pretty decent too, because with Kommo-o being a dragon type, he's going to resist things like water, fire, electric, stuff like that, grass as well. But if it's, you know, Rotom Frost or something like that, it can be a little bit tougher, but granted, that thing kind of just covers like Blizzard, and against opposing snow teams, that's not exactly what we're trying to shoot for anyway. So something like Incineroar can wall the Rotom Frost pretty decent. It's just that one's going to be a little bit harder to deal with, but it's not very typically seen. Anyway, moving on to like Mega Lopunny, we already talked about this a little decent bit with the Kommo-o being the kind of matchup into this. I will tell you guys what though, there is not a much better matchup on our team into this. Mega Lopunny is very threatening, considering we have 2 ghost types that now all of a sudden get hit, and 1 for super effective damage in Sabelye. Incineroar, who's a dark type, and he's getting super affected by like close combats from the Lopunny again. Primarina can wall it decently. Not gonna threaten a ton though. It could be okay, especially if they're gonna hit a close combat. To be fair, if you switch Primarina into a close combat and then like protect Gengar the next turn or something like that, you could probably KO it in 1 turn with a Moonblast. So that could be a decent matchup, but again, Kommo-o, probably your ideal use case into that. We already talked about Mega Hawlucha, Mega Greninja. Aegislash, really big threat. So as far as he goes, he has 2 different forms. He has a shield form, if you will, where he is like much more defensive. Let's pull up his base stats actually real quick. We could do it from here. I just got done recording the Palafin video, but Aegislash. All right, so with Aegislash, he has shield form where he has 140 defense and special defense with only 50 of each on the attack. Now, if you hit a Shadow Ball into this form, it ain't doing much at all, to be real with you. Now, if he readied an attack, however, or on the previous turn, let's say, because he's very slow, so chances are you had to like protect, wait for him to use an attack, right? And then he becomes in blade form on the next turn. Now you can ready an attack into him with a Shadow Ball. Problem is, they'll either do one of two things. They hit King Shield to then turn back into Shield form so they're not exposed, or while in Blade form already, they go Shadow Sneak into your Gengar. It's very hard to touch this guy. You have to really make the right plays at the right times, and it can be really frustrating to like try and get in on the opposing Aegislash when it comes to you using it as like a ghost type yourself. So really cool Pokemon. He's one of my favorite. Maybe I'll try and find a way to run him on the Paris Trap team as well. But yeah, between that and also the fact that King Shield as a move when you make physical contact with it is going to drop your attack. So things like Incineroar trying to hit a Throat Chop into them are still pretty rough as well. And look at this guy. What an absolute beast on the type chart. I mean, he gets super affected by 4 things, yes, but he's immune to 3 and resists like freaking 9. It's just insane. Only 2 things neutral him, and it's just water and electric. So shout out Rotom for maybe even dealing with this guy pretty decent. But anyway, yeah, that is pretty much it for the list. We have at the bottom here, as you're going to see, overall major weaknesses. Switch moves, dark types, ghost types that are faster and one-shot Gengar, aka Basket Legion pretty much. Some elite psychic types like Delphox and stuff like that, or shoot, even like really fast ones like Alakazam probably could threaten him too, but you just don't see him very often. And then normal types that make it hard to Paris Trap them. So like for instance, Farigiraf also being a psychic type is pretty tough to match into. Because again, Gengar could fire off Shadow Balls into most Psychic types, but when it's a Psychic normal, that's pretty annoying. Or like Oranguru, for instance, is pretty tough. However, he doesn't make it as tough to Paris Trap just because he doesn't really fire off a lot of damage, to be fair. But anyway, just wanted to give you guys this little guide right here and kind of understand the type of things that are like tough matchups into you. Maybe it can help you figure out your leads a little bit. It's a little hard for me to like decipher, you know, every lead use case. Maybe it would have to be its own video, and even still, I don't think we could even do that in one vid, because leads are, you know, probably one of the most complex things in Pokemon, to be fair. Trying to read into the 6 opponents that your teammate, your opponent could bring, and then try and figure out what's the right way to decode it. It's like there could probably be like 24, maybe even more than that, different matchups that they could possibly pair together on their team. It probably definitely is more than that. But anyway, it's gonna be all for the video. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, feel free to drop a like, sub, if you're new to notice, all that good stuff. Like always, try this 1 to 200 likes. And if you made it to the end of the video, you want to show us what you did, put perish or put counter in the comments. George supports you all the way through. But yeah, definitely wanted to do this for you guys. I figured since a lot of people have been asking what do you do about Farigiraf, I wanted to give you guys a couple of ideas between Incineroar, between Reflect type, you know, King Gambit being a problem. Just try and give a couple of answers to things and just talk about a couple of different use cases of who to lead. Again, I know I didn't really address it 100% on the lead use case, but yeah, just wanted to see what I could do for you guys, at least a decent bit. So anyway, that's all for the video. Hope you all enjoyed. Feel free to check out any other ones dropping today. I believe we have one on the Palafin, and then I still am yet to decide. I think it's going to be about Sabelye on the next one, because we've been doing a lot of that, but I got to, bro. He's such a beast. But anyway, yeah, the third video for today will probably be about Sabelye. So anyway, that's all. Appreciate y'all for watching. And that, take it easy, man. Peace.